Florida just recorded an impressive milestone: 34 million visitors in a single quarter. It sounds like America is still making a comeback, and Florida continues to hold its position as the premier vacation destination. However, if Florida is truly that vibrant, why are so many airports experiencing empty seats and deserted waiting areas? If international and domestic tourist numbers are truly booming, why have shopping malls, once considered symbols of American prosperity, now become abandoned machines with a multitude of stores permanently closed? Perhaps the record numbers are just a facade concealing a reality that is rotting from within. Weakening trade, dwindling consumption, and cold voids increasingly overshadowing the image of prosperity. Does the tourism boom truly equate to prosperity, or is it merely a distorted mirror reflecting a Florida with many secrets yet to be revealed? In today's video, let's peel back the layers of this paradox. From record-breaking tourist numbers, but empty insides, to deserted airports and abandoned shopping malls, to see what Florida is really hiding behind that seemingly brilliant tourism boom. Florida boasts record-breaking tourism numbers, but behind the crowds thronging Miami beaches and Orlando theme parks, is this a sign of a true paradise, or just an illusion bubble waiting to burst? With over 825 miles of pristine white sandy beaches, Florida's reputation as an ideal summer vacation destination has long been considered inviolable. In the second quarter of 2025, the state set a record with 34.4 million visitors. The press rejoiced, the government was proud, and in the dark landscape of America, where promised lands like Las Vegas and Hawaii were struggling with the risk of collapse, Florida seemed to become a rare bright spot. However, for businesses and residents, that vibrant and eagerly awaited summer didn't unfold as expected. On the contrary, it leaves large gaps in the economy and emptiness in cash registers. The question is, why, when travel is booming according to reports, is Florida becoming deserted in real life? And why are residents here struggling more than ever? Part of the solution lies in the silent decline from the north. Canadian tourists, the snowbirds who are the backbone of Florida's winter tourism, have decreased by nearly 20%. That absence not only makes winter less lively, but also leaves a clear gap in the state's tourism structure. Meanwhile, Native Americans accounted for a staggering 91% of visitors, and it was this figure that propelled Florida to record-breaking status. But that record, if you look closely, is like a party attended only by family members, crowded on the surface, but lacking the special guest who once made the difference. Along with Canada, the flow of international tourists in general is also gradually disappearing. A weakening currency, expensive airfare, and increasingly strained relationships have made Florida less appealing than before. When they are no longer welcome, when the cost is no longer worth it, they have no reason to return. In reality, tourism in Florida is showing signs of decline even amidst record numbers. It may sound contradictory, but the success of a destination cannot be measured solely by the number of visitors in a quarter. It must also consider the return rate of tourists and the happiness level of the residents living there. When businesses and people are still struggling under the burden of ever-increasing costs, profits are concentrated in the hands of a few, and the overall quality of life is declining. The beautiful numbers in the reports also become meaningless. Perhaps in the near future, no one will want to come to Florida to buy warm sunshine, blue seas, and Disneyland anymore. Faced with entry barriers, currency devaluation, and rising costs, the Florida dream is gradually fading. And in the eyes of many, it's no different from a cheap version of the Caribbean or Mexico. If record numbers are just a superficial facade, then what truly reflects the vitality of a destination? And if the Florida dream has begun to fade, do we still have enough faith and memories to preserve a paradise for future generations, or will we let it gradually slip into an illusionary bubble? If plane tickets to Florida were once likened to a seat, the state is now leaving an entire stadium empty. The silence in what is considered the gateway for millions of visitors, especially seniors seeking a retirement paradise, is perhaps the clearest indictment of the hidden corners behind the tourism boom celebrated with record numbers. The passport counters that were once crowded are now covered in a chilling layer of silence. And this isn't just happening in Florida, it's spreading to Las Vegas and New York, where hotels, airports, and businesses that rely on international tourism are preparing for a severe shock. A series of tightened trade, visa, and entry procedures has created unpredictable shocks for an industry that was once considered untouchable. Have the decisions from Washington deviated from the original plan? It's hard to say for sure, but from the perspective of many tourists, avoiding Florida in particular, and the United States in general, is gradually becoming a wise choice. Another undeniable truth is that many people simply don't have enough money to buy tickets anymore. Not a few tourists bitterly joke that if they buy a round-trip ticket to Florida, they might end up homeless by the time they get home, because the cost is on par with transatlantic flights. A round-trip ticket to London or Paris is only about $258, while a domestic flight to Florida has soared to $236. That insignificant difference makes a vacation in Florida a difficult choice to justify, as for the same amount of money, they could go further and have a richer experience. Along with ticket prices, strict entry policies are also adding to the tension. Canadian tourists, a familiar source of visitors, now have to go through a registration process with the authorities and get their fingerprints taken. This created a wave of outrage as visitors felt the United States was treating them like criminals. Canadian travel agencies are reporting a sharp increase in tour cancellations, but tourists didn't stay home. They chose other destinations. Mexico, the Caribbean, and Europe became beneficiaries, with some places seeing demand increase by up to 30%. Canadians left, and with them went the wallets that once sustained Florida's winter tourism economy. The whole world is having a bustling summer, but Florida alone sinks deeper into silence every day. The optimism that was once ignited after the pandemic seems to have faded, replaced by empty rows of seats and a sense of unease that something bigger is slowly crumbling. Florida was once the golden ticket to the American dream, but now the American eagle's wings are becoming heavy, no longer able to fly far, only circling around fading memories. If the golden ticket that once brought so many generations to the Florida dream is now an empty seat, are we witnessing only the remnants of a glorious past? And if even close neighbors like Canada leave, what can Florida hold on to avoid becoming a forgotten destination in memory? Just a few minutes' drive from Disney World, where bright lights and the laughter of children never cease, stood a massive, cold concrete block, a once glorious shopping mall, now abandoned, where thousands of visitors once came to buy souvenirs and experience the Disney spirit. There are now only empty corridors, flickering neon lights, and a cold emptiness. That contrast is like a bitter metaphor. Disney is still lit up, but right next to it, the American consumer dream has faded. Rewinding to the past, Seminole Town Center, which opened in 1995, was once a source of pride, boasting 5 major anchor stores: Sears, Macy's, JCPenney, Dillard's, and Burlington. In the early 2000s, this place was not only a shopping destination, but also a space of memories for the American middle class. Christmas is vibrant with giant Christmas trees and Santa Claus, teenage dates in the food court, and the first times young children are taken by their parents to choose toys. It's not just a place to buy and sell, it's a temple of consumerism, where Americans find joy, connection, and a piece of the American dream of prosperity. But the wheels of history have turned backwards. The chain collapse of retail giants like Sears and Macy's dealt a fatal blow. The COVID-19 pandemic then became the final accelerator, pushing many stores to permanent closure. At one point, This shopping centre was without power because it could no longer pay its bills, a tragic image for a once bustling icon. From a healthy body, Mall gradually resembled a dying patient, losing blood step by step without recovery. Today, stepping into that space felt like being transported into a real-life Stranger Things movie set. The neon lights still glowed dimly, the arcade, candy store and toy booth still have their signs hanging, but it's all just an empty shell. Some explorers say they feel like this place was abandoned just a few weeks ago. However, the truth is that the consumer spirit left it long ago. The mall became a silent funeral. The seats were still there, the signs hadn't been taken down, but no one came to attend. Emotions intertwined between sweet childhood memories and the chilling emptiness. Even the regal cinema inside, once a community entertainment mecca, has met the same fate. Torn chairs, rusty projectors. The electric lights are still on, and the smell of popcorn seems to linger somewhere. But the rows of seats that were once packed with laughter are now temporary shelters for the homeless. Old mattresses, makeshift tents, and haunting graffiti stains have transformed what was once a symbol of light into a haven for the lost. Malls and movie theaters, two pillars of American consumer and mass entertainment life in the 20th century, now share the same fate, being abandoned and becoming memories. That collapse didn't happen noisily, but quietly, like a funeral without mourners. The empty corridors and flickering lights remind us that this may not just be the disappearance of an economic model, but also a harbinger of the decline of the entire American consumer dream. Is the disappearance of shopping malls merely an inevitable cycle in the economic landscape, or is it whispering about the end of an era where the middle-class dream was once nurtured by music, lights, and a belief in endless consumption? And if these temples of consumption fall one by one, what will replace them in the minds and lives of the next generation? Every winter, as maple leaves fall in the north, hundreds of thousands of Canadians fly down to Florida, turning the beaches of Naples, Fort Lauderdale, or Clearwater into their second home. However, in recent winters, many seats on flights from Toronto or Montreal to Miami have been empty. That absence didn't make a sound, but it left a significant void in Florida's tourism landscape. A pause long enough for people to ask, what is really going on between two once close neighbours? According to data from Statistics Canada, StatCan, the number of Canadians returning from the US in July 2025 decreased by over 30% compared to the same period last year, with road travel declining more sharply than air travel. Right in Florida, local tourism associations like Visit Lauderdale acknowledge that from spring onwards, the number of Canadian visitors has shown a clear downward trend, forcing many restaurants and hotels accustomed to serving snowbirds to cut back on work shifts. This is a notable shift, as for decades, Canadians have been a stable support for Florida's winter season, a source of spending estimated to contribute billions of USD annually. The reason for this withdrawal is not just about price. Canadian mainstream media has repeatedly reflected the hesitancy of tourists in the face of the weakening Canadian dollar, which makes costs in the US more expensive. Additionally, political factors and stricter immigration policies have created an additional layer of psychological barriers. When the cost is no longer proportionate to the experience received, and when the feeling of being welcome is no longer as pronounced as before, choosing Florida becomes harder to justify in the eyes of many middle-class Canadians. What's even more concerning is the change in habits. Instead of staying home, many Canadians have diverted to other destinations. Caribbean countries, Mexico, and even Europe saw a significant increase in Canadian visitors during the same period. Some international travel agencies say demand for these alternative destinations has increased by dozens of %. And this trend is not just short-term. This means that Florida is not only losing visitors for one season, but may be gradually losing a deeply ingrained travel habit that has been a part of the winter culture for millions of Canadians. The tourism picture for Florida in the first half of 2025 still shows stable overall numbers, around 75 million visitors. But the structure has changed. International visitors are becoming fewer, while domestic tourists overwhelmingly dominate, creating a seasonal blind spot. Excessive reliance on the domestic US market makes Florida vulnerable to any economic fluctuations within the country. And if Florida loses its Canadian snowbird community, which is both high spending and long-term, it will be difficult to avoid a gap in the winter cycle. In this context, the solution likely lies in reframing the message. Florida needs to prove that it remains a safe, friendly, and cost-transparent destination, rather than an expensive and complex option. Long-term overwinter packages that combine healthcare, insurance, and rental housing could become an attractive offer to regain trust. Some major brands in the airline industry, such as Air Canada and WestJet, also play an important role, as their cooperation on fares and services can determine whether Canadian customers choose Florida. Can Florida find a sustainable source of tourists to replace the decline in Canadian visitors? And if the snowbird community is lost, an important piece of the winter dream, what will be left of the Florida dream besides memories? You book a room at a hotel in Miami Beach, and the screen shows a price of $119 per night. But when I went to the payment page, the number had ballooned. Resort fees, service fees, amenity fees, surcharges. Ultimately, you're no longer paying for a room, but bearing fees that few people truly understand. This story is no longer an isolated incident, but has become the clearest reflection of the economic trap Florida is caught in. A tourist paradise boasting record numbers, but behind it lies a burden of costs that both visitors and residents must bear. On May 12, 2025, the US Federal Trade Commission, FTC, officially put the junk fees rule into effect, requiring hotels and short-term rental units to disclose the full price up front, rather than hiding fees until the last minute. This is a direct blow to the bait-and-switch model that many Florida resorts have exploited for years. For tourists, the new regulations are expected to bring transparency. But for Florida's service industry, it's like a reminder that the game can no longer rely on illusions, but must be based on real value. At the same time, another pressure came from the labor market. The state of Florida has decided to raise the minimum wage to $14 per hour starting September 30th, 2025, and is expected to reach $5 by 2026. This change is happening in parallel with reforms elsewhere. California, for example, raised the minimum wage for fast food workers to $20 per hour starting in April 2024. This creates fierce competition among states to retain workers, especially in the tourism industry, which relies on hundreds of thousands of low-wage workers. With many hotels and restaurants in Florida, the problem becomes difficult. They must be transparent about prices while also increasing labor costs. The social consequences are gradually becoming apparent. Tourists pay more, but are not sure they will receive value for their money, as employees in the industry no longer feel committed. Major hotel chains and online travel agencies, OTAs, continue to profit, while the burden falls on both sides, workers and consumers. Florida is therefore in a paradox. Tourism brings in record revenue, but residents and even visitors feel increasingly exhausted. The solution is not far-fetched. Some pilot programs are being proposed, such as hotel worker housing in Los Angeles, where hotel corporations are partnering with the government to build affordable housing for employees. If Florida learns and applies this, it will not only reduce cost pressure on labor, but also improve service quality, creating a positive cycle. At the same time, major hotel corporations like Marriott or Hilton could take the lead in adopting all-in pricing packages, ensuring that guests pay the exact price they see from the start, rather than losing trust due to hidden fees. If even those working in the tourism industry can't make a living in Florida, what's the point of the boom? And will a fee transparency law be enough to restore trust? Or is it all just a fresh coat of paint on a wall that has been cracked for a long time? On the highway leading into Miami, a giant billboard blazes with the slogan, "Welcome to Paradise," depicting a blue sea and white sand. Yet right under its shadow, rows of faded canvas tents stood side by side, and people huddled together, seeking shade from the heat exceeding 100 gallons Celsius. That cruelly contrasting image was like a cut that went straight to the heart of Florida. On one side was a heavenly illusion for tourists, and on the other was the struggling reality of the residents themselves. According to the 2025 Point in Time report, the number of homeless people in Florida decreased by approximately 9% compared to 2024, totaling over 28,000 individuals. This number might seem like a positive sign, but if you look closely, you'll see a contradiction. While Miami-Dade County saw a 17% decrease in the number of people experiencing street homelessness, other areas witnessed a surge, particularly North Miami-Dade, which saw an increase of over 70% in just 1 year, according to the Miami-Dade Homeless Trust. In other words, instead of disappearing, homelessness is merely being shifted from one area to another, away from tourist hotspots, to deceive visitors. Florida's new law, which allows public sleeping bans and even grants the right to sue local governments if they fail to clear tent encampments, has sparked controversy. For the tourism industry, it's an effort to keep the image of a clean and beautiful paradise in the eyes of visitors. But for the community, it's a growing rift. When tent camps are forcibly evicted, the homeless don't disappear. They just drift into other dark corners of the city. As a result, the root issues, lack of affordable housing, lack of healthcare and mental health services, remain unaddressed. The symbol of division becomes even clearer when you see a patrol car circling a tent city set up under a luxury billboard. While guests at the resort might be enjoying cocktails by the pool just a few blocks away, the homeless are setting up tents with tattered tarps. This is no longer a simple income disparity, but a social divide, making Florida resemble a body with an open wound that is increasingly difficult to heal. Housing experts believe the long-term solution lies in the housing-first approach, which means providing stable housing before addressing other issues. The organization Miami Homes for All estimates the state is short about 13,600 affordable housing units, equivalent to an investment of $0.5 billion. This is a gap that cannot be filled simply by removing the tents. Some major real estate corporations like Related Group have been recommended to participate in housing bond programs, both to address the crisis and to build a corporate image of community engagement. How long can a state sustainably exist when its citizens and visitors live in two parallel realities? And if this cut continues to be stretched, how long until it becomes an irreparable crack? Today, Florida is both bathed in the glory of a tourist paradise and harbors hidden dark spots. Empty airports, abandoned shopping malls, retreating Canadian tourists, economic traps squeezing lives, and tent camps springing up under the shadow of million-dollar billboards. All these elements combine to create a picture that is both vibrant and fractured. Perhaps the most painful thing isn't the fluctuating numbers, but the feeling of a broken trust between the Florida painted for tourists and the Florida that residents face every day. Can a state continue to prosper while living in two parallel worlds? And if these cracks aren't mended, will the Florida dream become nothing more than a fading memory in the minds of a generation? If you've ever witnessed similar images where you live, please share your story in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to explore the hidden corners behind the glittering facade of America. The content in this video is compiled from public information sources, official reports, and independent analysis. All data, evidence, and opinions are intended to provide information, stimulate social reflection, and do not represent the official views of any organization, agency, or government. Viewers are encouraged to verify information through reliable sources and use critical thinking when receiving it. This video is not accusatory, does not aim to criticize individuals or groups, and absolutely does not encourage negative actions in any form.